Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Cantina Club. This is going to be another episode of The Outer Rim, where once again we talk about things outside the realm of Star Wars. This week, with the upcoming release of Alien Romulus, we're going to do an alien-centered episode where we talk about kind of our history of our fandom with the Alien franchise and possibly even rank the films by the end. Just a general chat, no particular format, just talking about kind of our history with those films and what we think about them. Because I can tell you for one, I am very excited about this upcoming film. I hope I'm not getting my expectations up too high, but it really, really looks good.
Mhm.
Looks like it was shot the way I like an alien movie to be shot. Very analog, very practical effects, and just really, really cool. So, anyway,
Are you talking about Don't Breathe, the movie where some teenagers
yes,
stumble into a house trying to salvage things and run
that's
into
it.
a
That's it.
monster
Right. Yep. That's
directed
exactly the
by
one I'm talking
Eddie
about.
Alvarez? Eddie Alvarez was his name. Or are you
Yeah.
talking about Romulus, where some teenagers stumble into
Similar
a space
to an
station to
abandoned
salvage
space
some things?
station. Let's see where this is going.
I haven't seen that movie. I've deliberately avoided watching it just in case it has any
In
spoilers
case
for the
it's the
upcoming
same,
movie.
yeah, in case it's the same movie,
All
just with
right, yeah,
aliens.
sounds very good.
Exactly.
Run.
Are you sure you want to do this?
So I guess I'll just start this off by saying our history, dates back to this film, to when it was originally released. We've told the story on the show before, but this being an Alien episode, I want to go ahead and tell it again. I know that in particular, Greedo and I were just kind of captivated by the concept of this movie. We were too young to see it. When it came out, we were only basically about 12 years old. So we were definitely too young to go see it in theaters, and but we still managed to just become obsessed with this movie. And what we did was we read the novelization came out. We read the novelization, so we knew the story. And then I was actually shopping at the Raleigh Springs Mall one night, and found this what I guess is kind of called a photo novel or something. I forget what the official name of it is. I actually still have it to this day, but it's I actually should have brought it down here anyway. But it's the entire movie in freeze frames from the film. And it tells it almost like comic book style.
What we would call screen caps today.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. As we would call screen caps today. But there was no art in it. It was literally just photos. Every page was just solid, groups of photos telling the movie in a chronological order as it was.
And I think the
And it
dialogue
had
was
the
subtitled in the photos,
yeah, the
right?
dialogue would be like subtitled at the bottom of each photo if there was dialogue for that photo. So that so from there, and it was graphic. I mean, it didn't pull any punches. There,
Yeah.
when it came to the chest burster scene, it was full on graphic, blood and chest burster popping out. So we knew what it looked like. We just hadn't actually seen the film yet. So that actually went on for a few years before before we actually got around to actually seeing the film, which we were kind of talking before we started recording today. We're not even sure exactly when that happened, but it must have been. I know Gundart, was saying that it was probably on VHS somewhere, because
Yeah.
I'm sure we didn't see it in the theater. I know it
I
was
remember
years and
it.
years
I didn't
later.
say anything, but I remember renting
Oh,
it.
okay. Oh, you
And
do remember renting
I
it.
remember
Okay.
we were so excited to see it that we kept it like a week over what we were supposed to keep it.
Because we wanted to watch it over and over
Yeah.
again.
Because this was, we got to say, this was in the days, before cable TV, where this
Hmm.
movie would never have been shown on network television. Network TV
No,
No.
is all
there's
we
no
had.
version of this you could show on network
So
television. Yeah.
if we didn't see it in the theater, the only way we could see it is once they had
No, and I think the way to
VCRs to rent it.
determine
You're right.
when exactly we saw it is to look at the first weekend it was the
Released on
first week it was
VHS.
Yeah.
available
Yeah.
for rent. Yeah.
Right. Right.
And because I remember we got it as a typical rental, and I remember you and I being like, "Okay, here we go." We
Yeah.
watched it in the afternoon, like there was still sunlight out, so we were
Okay.
so eager to see it. We couldn't wait for it to be
Right.
like the dark in the
We're
front
gonna
row.
watch it at dark. Yeah.
But even knowing everything we knew about it, I remember it being totally different than what I expected. A
hmm
lot of it.
Even though we
So
knew the story and we saw the
yeah,
photos, yeah, it's just different when you actually see it, see
no,
the
it's
actual
the
film.
movie is you can't if you've never seen it, you can't really imagine what that it's very artistically done, very
Yeah.
And
everything
it
about the camera
was
framing, the shots, everything, the
Yeah, the
editing, it's just
tension, the
different perspective
suspense
and seeing
that
pictures.
comes through in the pacing is just, yeah, that's something
Yeah.
you miss in the book. Yeah.
it was the talk of the time too. Like you guys are saying, everybody knew about it. Everybody knew about
hmm
the chest bursting scene. I remember specifically all my friends talking about it. My girlfriends, I had a group of girlfriends, and we would get together, and they would all be talking about it. And one of them had special status with all the other girls because her brother was old enough to go see it in the theater. Yeah, and he could actually confirm that what we had heard was true.
Was
And then
true.
you guys got hold of that book and you're like,
Yeah.
oh
And
my
there's the
God.
photos.
Like,
Yep.
yeah.
And I want to say also, the person probably most responsible for my alien addiction is Alan Dean Foster.
hmm
I
Yeah.
believe it was he who wrote the novelization,
He
and
did. Yeah.
he was king of the '70s, '80s movie novelization in a lot of ways.
Exactly.
And he wrote two almost back to back Star Wars and
hmm
Alien that are both different. Alien less so because I think he got to look at the movie. Maybe Star
hmm
Wars never got to see the movie, so he's making up from paintings and stuff and some images he saw
Yeah.
and
And
have
the
to fill in the
script.
blanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he's adding a lot of Alan Dean Fosterisms and but
Yeah.
Alien's a little closer, but it's not a quick read. It's not a thin little comic.
hmm
It is a full fleshed novel
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's very, very good and riveting. And you combine that with the soundtrack, Jerry Goldsmith, I believe,
hmm
and those two things were enough for my imagination. Reading the book and listening to the soundtrack to go with it to have me hooked on and the mystery of finally, we never saw it, but the mystery of it,
Yeah.
envisioning it ourselves and in pictures, and we collected all the magazines, the sci-fi magazines that had the pictures of the alien, and he's always in the half in the dark and that is, that's the other thing is the creature design is so
Mhm.
amazing,
Yeah.
and it's such a
Absolutely.
good job of keeping it under wraps, where you don't even know it took us a year to figure out what part of the alien we're looking at, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's like
Exactly.
close-ups and stuff like his arm, his shoulder, his leg, his tail.
Or
He's
those
got a tongue
back
for teeth.
cones or
What's
whatever
going on
those
with
were.
that?
Yeah.
The whole thing was so incredible that and the face hugger and the eggs. It's like I don't know. It was just cool. It's a different time. Now you can go on the internet, go right to YouTube or somewhere and see everything you want to see, or
Yeah.
go get bootlegs or pirate stuff.
Exactly.
But back then we had to kind of imagine it, and that's why
hmm
I think it got such a grip on us. We also, Alan and I both loved the idea of these average Joes running into something
Yeah.
so remarkable and so hostile, and we were obsessed with the characters as well. So,
Oh, absolutely. Well,
and
the
the
characters
company,
were so
even at
great.
our young age, we were obsessed
Yeah.
by some of the
Yeah.
different
The
ideas
whole
there.
concept of the company.
Yeah. I think that's one reason the movie's so enduring and people
hmm
related to it then was because they called it again truckers in space, but
Right.
you can't really say that any more than you can say that about Han Solo. I mean
Sure.
that's the instant
The same
kind of
basic premise.
equation you
Yeah.
make, but they're more than that. They're more than just
hmm
truckers in space. They're blue collar, workers, and but there's different levels of them represented. The company's represented. I mean, there's a lot of familiarity there.
hmm
It's set in kind of a dystopian feeling.
Yeah.
Get the feeling from these few characters you see of that society that it's not the best,
Yeah.
and of course
Absolutely.
you learn
Yeah.
by the end that it really isn't. I think they all work for Amazon. I think they're
Yeah.
delivering
They're
Right.
workers being
Amazon
giant
exploited
delivery.
by the
warehouse full of
company.
frozen workers and packages.
Exactly.
And one of them has an alien in it.
Yeah. But yeah. Yeah.
But
To
yeah,
your.
we
Mhm.
rented that from Blockbuster, the one on Poplar,
Yeah. Both of by
and
Perkins
in
Extended.
Memphis,
Yeah.
Tennessee. Yeah,
hmm
we got it right at the height of its demand, and we kept it from everyone else. So we got charged. My poor mom,
So I'm wondering
my
if that
poor
was
mom
actually
had
a
to pay for it.
Betamax.
The fees.
I just don't because back then it was years before movies
It
would come
might
out
have
on
been a
video.
Betamax. Yeah, I think it was.
I'm
Because
betting
I
it
think it
I
was.
was
remember the
at the
original copy of
earliest.
Star Wars was Betamax.
Yeah,
I'm betting at the earliest it was 1980 or 81, but it was probably 82.
Probably so. Yeah, I'm guessing it was a good couple of years later before
yeah.
it saw any sort of video release.
If
But yeah,
anybody knows, leave a comment down there.
yeah,
Somebody may have
yeah,
been working
definitely.
with their Blockbuster when it came out. Remember?
Yeah,
Wait to
yeah.
look it up.
And to your point, Greedo, the alien itself was just so unique and such a creative idea for a monster, clearly through the ideas of H.R. Giger, who was just unbelievable. I used to have his book, the Necronomicon or whatever it was called, I think, that where he had just all of that crazy artwork that they originally that he did
Yeah,
before the movie, and that's actually what kind of captured Ridley Scott's attention. And
yeah.
wanted to, let's see if he can design a monster, that's unique. So yeah, it was just to me, it's the most unique monster to come out of Hollywood, at that time in decades. So, and I really don't think it's been topped, honestly. I think it's
No.
probably the coolest thing I've ever seen. So yeah,
And they went a very roundabout way to find it. It's another case of when we talk about Star Wars, we say, how did all these different talents line up
yeah,
to come together at this moment to make Star Wars
hmm
and a thing that could absolutely look ridiculous when you put it on the screen,
absolutely. It
and,
could have flopped
somehow
so horribly.
captivated everyone instead of looking,
Yeah,
even though it might have looked a little ridiculous. We loved that about it. And how does Alien? Ridley Scott, I think, was one of the major ones that as soon as he saw Giger's work, he said, "That's it.
yeah,
That's the Alien," because they had
that's
been
the alien.
floundering with designs, and some of the designs were just ridiculous. They said looking and
Oh
just
yeah, it was just
because they
terrible
couldn't
stuff.
work
Yeah.
well.
Because
And they
originally it
had
was
some
just going to
great
be like a
designers. They
blob
had
with
some great
tentacles and
designers.
eyes. It was going to look
Yeah,
ridiculous. Yeah.
including the people that came up with the concept and stuff. They never really had it down what the alien would look like, and nobody would. Giger's a unique
Oh yeah,
individual,
absolutely.
at least.
Yeah.
So the fact that he was willing to do it, that they were able to
hmm
bring him in, then they were able to live with him, because I understand that was could be a difficult relationship as well.
hmm
And that all of that worked together so well is just, I don't know how. And then another thing about I know we haven't uh, really, we're still talking about Alien, but
Yeah.
the ship is the other major character in the movie.
hmm
And I look at that still today. We went to see the re-release in the
Yeah.
theater a few weeks ago,
Yep.
and the ship looks like from now. I mean, it looks like it could still exist
Yeah. There's
as a real
nothing
thing.
dated about this film. That's one of the
Yeah.
testaments to it, I
Well,
think.
the blue screens are a little dated, but you understand that looking at it, you're like, this was cutting edge at the time.
Right.
I like the fact that they haven't cleaned them up. You see
hmm
how you can compare it and say, look how ahead of its time this was.
Yeah.
And you get to see the original artist's work still there. And, we're smart enough to be able to accept that instead of complaining, I need to update the effects or whatever. We're
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
I want to
No,
see
they
the
do not.
original artist or,
Yeah.
myself personally.
Yeah.
I don't need that from this. But
hmm
it shows you how ahead of its time that all that holds up. But the ship is a character. The set designers and this is not a high budget movie.
hmm
Um, I think after they got Ridley Scott, they added a few $1 million to the
Yeah.
budget, but it was by no means, going to bankrupt anybody or anything, or they didn't have a big budget. And you look at those sets, and you're like, today that would cost $250 million just for the
Yeah.
sets.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're so convincing.
And what's so
And I
cool
bet
about
you
it
can go in
too.
there, you can just pick them up because they're cardboard or something. But
Well, what I thought
they're
was unique
painted
about
so
it
well.
too is, they built the interiors of the ship as one long thing. Like each room they're in is not a separate set. The whole ship was one set. It created that claustrophobic
Yeah.
feeling. And even the actors said they had a really difficult time adjusting to that because it was creeping them out so bad.
They
Because
felt like they couldn't get away. Yeah.
yeah,
hmm
it's like they really did feel claustrophobic because it's not like, oh, it just looks like that, but just 6 inches off of each frame, it's like wide open. It's not. It is the
Yeah.
ship built just like the ship itself. So I thought that was kind of a unique. I'm sure that
Yeah,
added
and
to
now I
the
imagine
actor's ability to pull off the characters.
just renting the sound stages big enough to pull that off now would
Yeah.
be prohibitive.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Plus,
Yeah. Absolutely.
they did a lot of dangerous stuff, and they did it in Aliens too for the atmospheric look, like on the
hmm
planet and everything on the asteroid. They used a lot of stuff that probably wouldn't be legal to do today,
Yeah. Oh,
smoke and
absolutely.
different chemicals and different plastic in the air and
Oh
stuff that
yeah.
probably was really bad for everybody that was there.
Yeah, well,
And
Tom Skerritt and John Hurt and Veronica Cartwright have all told the horror stories about being in the suits and trying to breathe, and that literally at one point they had rerouted. They were trying to create the steam coming out the top to make it look like they were breathing, when in reality there was like a hose that was routed wrong, and like carbon dioxide was filling in the mask, and they were all almost dying.
wow.
It was just insanity reading that stuff. Yeah, so Gundark, I need to kind of throw it to you here for a minute. In
Yeah, because
all
we
the
can talk about it
in all
forever.
the yeah, in all the we could totally monopolize this in the
Exactly. Yeah.
decades that I've known you. Oh, I don't think we've ever had much of a conversation about Alien and kind of what
So serious.
your sort of fandom is about it, and kind of what your perception of these films are and where they rank with you.
Well, we went to see Aliens together, I think,
Right.
didn't
No, we
we?
did.
Yeah,
We did.
we
Yeah.
went to see Aliens together, but we
Hmm.
didn't see the first movie in the theater. And
Yeah.
I didn't have that book. Y'all got it, and I and
Right.
I saw it. Y'all were looking at the picture book and
Yeah.
lusting after it for a long time before I could actually see it. So, but I've always loved. I love the first two movies. I don't remember enough about the third movie. I do remember I didn't care for it that much, and I've only seen bits and pieces from the fourth movie that has Sigourney Weaver in it.
Hmm. Hmm.
But
Resurrection.
what sticks with me through all of them is not only the cool aliens, but it's Sigourney Weaver.
Hmm.
It's,
Hmm.
I mean, it's like you got to think about when that first movie was released in '79. Then we had Princess Leia the year before that, and now we had this woman who is working a working class miner on a mining ship,
Hmm.
with other guys, and I think what one other
Well,
woman,
yeah, one other one.
Veronica
Veronica
Cartwright,
Cartwright. Yep.
and
Lambert.
she's the one who survives and who figures out how to, and it's largely through her shrewdness, and her smarts, and
Hmm.
also through some luck, she figures out how to get rid of the alien. And when I go back and look at it now, and I know about the place that it holds in the history of science fiction, because I teach a science fiction course, and when we do a segment on feminist science fiction, we always talk about those movies and we look at some clips from them and stuff. Because there's been a ton of scholarship, and now that we have the internet, think pieces, on the internet, but a ton of academic scholarship about these movies, especially from a feminist perspective, is not just having a powerful female protagonist who wins
Hmm.
in the end, but more about how it deals with fears, related to women, like it's body horror, right? I mean, that's the
Right.
main thing about an alien is body horror.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the body horror that women face in becoming pregnant, the rape metaphors,
Rape
especially in the
metaphors.
first
Exactly.
movie,
Very much
where
so. Yeah.
John Hurt basically gets raped and then he gives
Hmm.
birth to an alien.
Exactly.
So
That's
it's like all
that's what
those
it
hard,
is.
yeah. And I think about that. It goes all the way back to Frankenstein in terms of the history of science fiction.
Hmm.
You got a woman author writing about fears of the birthing process and how horrifying it can be and how closely connected birth is with death. And that's always been a big theme in horror too. Life and death is intricately connected to each other.
Hmm.
And so you got an alien that can, by giving birth and keeping its species alive, is at the expense of our own species, and so
Yeah.
all of that
Yeah.
is horrifying. And then they kind of up the ante on the female element in the second movie by focusing more on motherhood. The first movie
Hmm.
seemed to be more about the fears of the body horror of pregnancy and the baby bursting out of
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And the second movie seemed to be more about a woman fighting to protect a child, while at the same time, what I thought was so cool about Sigourney Weaver in that movie was that she seemed to kind of subvert ordinary gender paradigms, where she could be maternal and feminine at the same time as she could tote huge guns and order
Hmm.
Marines around and ram
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
a car or machine, through and save their lives.
Right.
So it was just cool seeing a woman like that leading a movie,
Hmm.
and she's was the lead in those films. Now,
Hmm.
I don't know about the third one. I don't know, it was kind of repetitive to me. The fourth one, I've seen bits and pieces of, and I think they were trying to go again with the maternal element and the hybrid element where she
Hmm.
becomes what, a hybrid human
She becomes
alien
more
or
of a
whatever.
hybrid human alien. Yeah.
That's an interesting concept, but from what it looked like from the scenes I've seen and the reviews I've read about it, it looked pretty bad in terms of the aesthetics of the movie. That wasn't a very well written
Hmm.
or well filmed movie, is what it sounds like. Although
Yeah.
I haven't seen the entire thing, so I have to give that caveat. But the
Yeah.
first two, just like they are iconic now in both sci-fi and horror for
Hmm.
dealing with women's issues and having such a wonderfully attractive female protagonist. What an
Yeah.
amazing woman Sigourney Weaver created with the Ripley character. And I can understand how it made it kind of hard for the later filmmakers to let her character go. You know, if they were going to continue the franchise, they really needed to be able to move beyond her character, which they eventually tried to do. But I
Hmm.
think it was kind of hard for them to let that really iconic character go. But that's what's always stuck with me from the first two movies. Beyond the cool, super cool alien,
Hmm.
was just that super cool protagonist that worked on so many different levels.
Yeah. And I mean, and what you're saying rings even more strong, I think, because this was Sigourney Weaver's first film, really. She had nothing but stage experience before that. And she said that it was such a brutal experience that she never wanted to make another film again as long as she lived after Alien because it was just so different and the conditions
She's
were
made
so
a few.
brutal in certain sides. But she, of course, went on to make a massive career out of film. But yeah, I think that speaks even more to her abilities and her talent to say that your first film and you pull off Ripley. That's incredible. That's pretty incredible. So
Yeah,
especially in 1979, we
yeah,
can't take it out of context. 1979 was just a different time. There was a lot of pushback from the studio at the time saying there's no way in the world that you can have a woman be the lead on this. No one will believe it. That was always the thing. Like no one's going to believe this woman's going to survive this situation. And
Huh.
that
and
actually kind
even
of.
and she even subverts like the Sleeping Beauty
Hmm.
trope. You know, where at the end she's going into the cryogenic chamber, she looks like Sleeping Beauty,
Right.
but she rescued herself to get to
Hmm.
that spot. You know,
Right. It
so
wasn't
it's
a it wasn't a prince that came in and
yeah,
rescued her. Yeah.
yeah. All of that was just really cool.
Hmm.
Can I say something real quick about
No.
that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You know I can't say it real quick, so you know I'm lying already. But I, what I find interesting about that whole about Sigourney Weaver and Veronica Cartwright
Hmm.
and the roles they played and everything, is that I felt like watching that film, except for certain parts that they kind of put in at certain points, those characters could have been interchangeable with men. And
Yeah.
the men, and vice versa. I
Well,
mean, except
originally
for
they were all
Parker
men.
has that alpha male
Mm.
energy about him,
Yeah,
but
originally they
everyone
were all
else,
men. Yeah.
yeah, but everyone else is kind of you could have switched because the women are just professionals in that movie. They're like
Hmm.
Yeah.
when you watch the first half of it, Lambert's very composed. That's why her descent into hysteria is so effective in this
Yeah.
second
Hmm.
half of the movie
Hmm.
because she's very professional, and so is Ripley. And they don't emphasize the looks on either one of them. Like, look at the movies that were coming out at the same time. And aside from some of the movies that were going for more realism and grittiness,
Hmm.
but even those, the women would be holding down the glamour side of it usually. But if you put a attractive woman in space, she's going to be wearing a silver costume or
Yeah,
something. You
yeah.
know what I mean? Her hair's going to be done. She's going to be wearing something
Low
fitting with
cleavage
jewels
and
on.
all that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Revealing.
it's probably going to have
Exactly.
some cleavage or some leg showing or something. And these characters look absolutely normal,
Yeah.
lived-in people. I didn't watch that thinking, "Wow, Sigourney Weaver's so hot" or anything. Although
Hmm.
she is, she's
But
more hot
it
for
wasn't the
time. But
sexuality that attracted you to the role. It wasn't
right,
Yeah.
like, oh, I
it's
like that character
almost.
because
I
she's
always felt
hot
like
or something. Yeah.
the scene where she gets in her underwear at the end is almost a disservice to the rest of the movie
Hmm.
because I don't know a lot of people disagree with me because they love that scene, but uh, uh but uh but it just feels a little out of place. They did it in such a way where you really don't have to dwell on it. It's the tension of you could say there's a message there, or whatever, where she's regressing down to
Mhm.
her pure self, or she's naked against the creature, or whatever you want. I don't know how you want to analyze that, but to me it was a little bit unnecessary. But except for that, the character's not sexualized at all.
Mhm.
Hmm.
They cut out the subplot where there was any sex involved between the characters, and
Yeah.
I think that really, really just works,
Mhm.
and it also adds to the tension of which one of these characters is going to survive, if any,
Yeah. Yeah.
because they're all equally competent in their own ways. They're supposed to work together. They don't. None of them have complete information or complete control or complete power. They're a team on the ship.
Right.
The captain's not going to go down and fix the engine, and Parker's
Hmm.
not going to come up and land the ship.
Right.
So they do need each other, and that's why things get even more and more desperate as more of them are eliminated. Their capabilities are down to nothing, and it just
Yeah.
becomes survival. But um, but yeah, I think that to me, I didn't sit there when I saw Aliens. I didn't sit there thinking I'm being indoctrinated into feminism by this movie. You know what I mean?
Mm-mm.
I
Not
just
at
liked
all.
the characters.
Right.
Who's the female Marine? Vasquez, is it?
Yeah.
Vasquez. Yep.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Vasquez, and then there's a couple other female Marines.
Hmm.
I
Yeah. The
just,
pilot. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
I was smart enough to go, this is the premise of the film, and it was totally engrossing, and I didn't question it for 1 second.
Mm-mm.
It had a realism and validity to it. It rang true, and Sigourney Weaver can play a person you listen to.
Yep.
Yeah.
When she speaks, you better listen to what she says. She's got that about her, and
Yeah.
so it's perfect casting. That doesn't always happen in every role
Mm-mm.
where you want to say strong female character, and she speaks, and you just don't want to listen to her. You know what I mean? Same
Yeah.
with men. The roles are reversed. It takes acting chops and everything to come together
And
to
it
make
takes a
that
good
character
script.
into something
Yeah.
Mhm.
that has that kind of heft. And
Yeah.
she always had it. And by Aliens, they're not afraid to photograph her when she's looking exhausted.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Her hair's messed up. She's smoking. She's like at her low point. They kind of strung out at her low point in the movie. They show that openly
Mhm.
on film,
Hmm.
And also when they give her close-ups when they're in dire situations, and they're not always the most flattering thing. Like I said, they're
Right.
not glamour shots,
Yeah.
and I don't know. As an audience member, I accept that readily. Um, whereas if it's more staged and more meant to look more glamorous, and it becomes more fake to me. It
Yeah.
Yeah.
distances me. It
Agreed.
doesn't draw me in. And she was bold enough to tackle those things as an
And
actor.
and you can say that about the first movie too, is that so much of it was improvised, right? I
Hmm.
mean, by the
Yeah.
actors on set. So
Hmm.
it made it seem even more real. It was like people who worked every day of their lives together, doing these and encountering these horrors together. And
Hmm.
so it was utterly convincing. And it seemed like it's a world where women were just working alongside men normally at those things,
Yeah. Just a normal
And you got to
thing.
think
Yep.
about when that movie was made too. 79, that was like at the height of second wave feminism when there'd been that wave of women entering the workforce in the United
Hmm.
States,
Right.
with divorce rates going up. And so you had women, new professional attitudes towards women, that
Right.
maybe worked its way into that
Yeah, and
first movie
like you
more.
said, the women weren't depicted as, they weren't secretaries or
Yeah.
assistants to the men. They
or
weren't
or a threat
Yeah.
right,
No.
either.
No.
Yeah.
right. They were
Um,
just co-equals,
Yeah.
with
Just
everybody
working
else in the
together.
crew.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I want
exactly.
to mention, I'll be remiss if I didn't mention this. It isn't quite on this topic, but talking about Alien, I did meet Veronica Cartwright about 2 years ago now, and had a very long discussion with her. She's very generous with her time about acting and how she approaches all that stuff. And I asked her, how do you get so good at conveying hysteria, at
Hmm.
conveying fear, at conveying,
Without it being
uh,
over the top. Yeah, because
yeah,
it
and
can get out of
really,
control. Yeah.
she went into a lot of detail and everything, but really, it just seems like she's just really good at it. She's just
Yeah.
really, that's why she was getting cast a lot. I mean, not the only reason,
No,
but
yeah.
a lot of her characters end up with a scream, or
Hmm.
she's kind of a scream queen in a way,
Or like the
because
birds,
Like the
where she
birds.
was
Yeah, I
the
was
yeah,
gonna say
teenager
all
in the
the
birds.
yep,
yeah,
she was the
she
teenager in the
conveys
birds. Yep.
fear. I was like, because like anybody can get on screen, and they can murder a character, and they can cry and blubber and whatever, and we may not feel anything for them, but every time she pulls us in somehow.
Hmm.
She's one of those actors that we just remember. It becomes memorable, even if at the time you don't go, "Oh, that's Veronica Cartwright playing that
Yeah.
role." You remember those moments. And anyway, we had I thought it was a fascinating discussion about it, and she's very cavalier about it, but
Hmm.
but she takes it very seriously. The acting and everything, and obviously
Yeah,
you can see that on the screen in Alien.
definitely. Hmm.
And she's also very proud and invested in the results
Hmm.
and of her work and everything. So um, anyway, that was kind of a highlight moment for me from my alien journey of the last
Yeah.
40 years. Was getting such a nice long conversation with her and hearing some behind the scenes stories and things like that, and how upset she is to this day that they cut in Harry Dean Stanton's shoes in her death
Yeah.
scene.
She's always on about that. Yeah. In interviews and stuff I've seen.
Yeah, because the
Um,
first time she saw it was at the premiere, and she was like,
that's
"But you're
not
talking
me.
to her.
That's not
You're talking
me.
to her."
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess we'll wrap up the just talking about the original film with, you can't get past just saying what a cast. The
Yeah.
cast was unbelievable. What a great ensemble cast. I mean, we got Tom Skerritt, John Hurt, Ian Holm, Sigourney Weaver, Veronica Cartwright, Harry Dean Stanton, Yaphet Kotto. Come on. That's just heavyweights on every level. And they all absolutely brought their A game, I thought, to that because it's such a great quotable film when I'm watching, especially the sort of the social scenes, like they call them, like when they're in the mess hall and stuff like that, where they're just chit chatting back and forth. It feels so completely real. And they're
Mhm.
just so, just like what normal people you would see. It doesn't seem like, oh, these are actors playing a role. It just felt completely, normal. I don't know how to really describe it, but it just felt so natural, I guess is a better word. That I think that really kind of is one of the things that sucked me into this film too. Just the interplay and all
Well,
that
a lot
was
of,
was
a lot
great.
of horror movies can learn a lot from that movie.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And
So,
even just the
mhm.
minimalism, like at the very big, isn't it at the
Yeah.
beginning when the camera goes to the ship and you see the helmet and you go to the,
Yes,
that is just, that
such a great
just
way of
creeps
shooting
you
it.
out
Yeah,
before you even get to the rest of the
exactly.
film. And it didn't,
It's
Exactly.
and there
also
was no
magnificent,
dialogue,
though.
nothing.
Absolutely. It's beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's
I think
fantastic.
that's mirrored through the whole movie. The alien is magnificent as well.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Ash, nobody might relate to Ash, but his line where he says you're up against a perfect organism, you have no
Mhm.
doubt he's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In one way, a certain type of person would admire this creature, and
Hmm.
we did.
Oh yeah,
We loved the
absolutely.
That's why we've had 10 billion movies about them now.
Right,
Oh
exactly.
yeah, yeah. You're never
And
going to beat that design
so
and everything that came together there.
So moving on to Aliens, which is honestly, of all the films, is probably the last one I want to really go in depth on because I don't
Mhm.
think the others are necessarily worthy of a deep discussion. I mean, maybe for negative reasons, I don't really want to go there.
Right.
But going into Aliens, I do remember seeing that for the first time at the theater at the Mall of Memphis when it came out, and you guys, I've mentioned this to Greedo, and I don't think he remembers, but we saw that movie with John Denver.
John Denver.
John Denver.
Wait,
He
I
was
do
he was
remember.
watching in the projection booth because
I
as soon as the movie
remember.
was over and we were walking out, the door to the projection booth opened, and like two of the people that worked at the thing were escorting John Denver. I was like, "Wait, that's John Denver."
I
So we actually
remember
went and saw
that. I
Aliens with
did.
John Denver.
I had
Wow.
forgotten. No, I
Yeah, that's so crazy. But yeah, I have very vivid
Guess I
memories of
just
that
wasn't that
night.
impressed by John Denver at the time.
It was so
I
anyway,
don't
yeah. So
remember
that
that.
movie hit me like a sledgehammer as well. But it's so funny that it's a totally different type of film.
yeah,
It's a
that's what
completely
gets
different type
me.
of film. It's an action
Yeah.
film. If I had to describe, Alien is a horror movie, Aliens is an action film, because even the tagline says it. This time it's war, and that's what it was. Because instead of one alien sneaking around in the shadows, picking people off one by one, it's just full on hundreds of aliens coming at a Marine Corps.
Mhm.
So, what are your guys' thoughts on that? Where do you feel it sort of ranks with the original film?
that's what struck me about it being so different when we saw it. It's
Mhm.
really, if you think about it, we got a different director, James Cameron, and you can see that Ridley Scott and James Cameron, they're stamped on their respective
Absolutely.
movies.
Yeah,
Their presence is stamped on those movies.
very much
But what
so.
you wouldn't think about is it's something that was so popular and you're going to get a sequel to it that first of all would be made by a totally different director with a different style, and then it would just be almost different genre, like you're talking about, and
Hmm.
yet it would still be so good. It's one of those things where we have a hard time with a sequel being as good as the first film,
Hmm.
and then it's rare that a sequel surpasses the first film, and then if the second film, the sequel, is something that is so different, it's kind of rare that it's as good as the first, or often we think of it as a violation of the first, or
Right,
something like that. And I
right.
never felt that in this. I
Mm-mm.
felt it was so different, but I felt it was perfect in what it was doing.
Hmm.
And it was a tribute, if anything, to the previous movie, that it could do something entirely different with it, and then the aliens still be compelling.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
yeah, it's so different. It's almost shocking when
The,
you see them back to
the first
back.
one was the
Yeah.
first one was sci-fi suspense horror,
Yeah.
Hmm.
and it's a 10. And the second one is sci-fi suspense action,
Hmm.
Yeah,
and it's a 10.
right.
Yeah.
So they made a horror
Within that
movie, they made
category,
an
yeah.
action movie,
Hmm.
Yeah.
and they made them the best you could possibly make them, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know what are you going to say is better?
Yeah.
Sci-fi in in those
Right.
two categories, um, and that's crazy. And it's 6 years
Hmm.
apart.
Hmm.
And I also want to say the script is almost perfect
Hmm.
Hmm.
for Aliens. It's like an almost perfect script. Uh, the movie's almost perfect, and it had to, like everything else, it had to overcome so many things to be made. But as a sequel, it does something incredible in that it takes what looks to be a closed loop from Alien. All the characters but one are dead, and the cat. Um, the heroine is just flying out into space to go home. We assume happy ending.
Hmm.
And the alien's dead. The planet's left behind. It takes every one of the ideas from the first movie and goes in a streamlined way where even us sitting at home as kids imagining where all these scenarios could go, it just very simply, very streamlined, very straightforward connects onto a great ideas with each part
Yeah.
of it, and expounds upon the alien
Hmm.
life cycle, expands upon the company, expands upon everything. They almost left no stone unturned on addressing what was left there from the first movie, and then it just expanding in cool ways that rang true, that drew you further into the alien universe. That for being so different, it fits perfectly. It
Yeah.
really
No,
does.
it really does.
It's amazing that anyone was allowed to connect those ideas in that way, and
Hmm.
everything turns out great,
Yeah.
and good. And somebody with a bonehead idea didn't get in there, or the studio didn't interfere and say
Hmm.
this or that. Um, and again, the soundtrack is different but
Yeah.
amazing.
James Horner this time.
I
Yep.
don't remember the novelization. The novelization didn't have the same impact that Alien had on me,
Hmm.
but
it was also Alan Dean Foster. I actually just went back and reread it
uh,
recently again,
I
and
need to read it
it's good.
again.
It's
But
it's definitely good, but yeah, it didn't quite have the same impact, like you said, of the original novelization, I think.
but I remember sitting in the theater when we saw it. I even remember where I was sitting and everything.
Hmm.
I
Yeah, I
remember
remember
the
everything
screen,
about that day.
and there
Yeah.
was moments in the movie where I went, "Holy crap, this thing is fantastic!" It's
Yeah.
like I take a breath and I go, "This has been amazing so far." And they would reveal something. They'd be like, "There goes the stakes higher." The
Hmm.
stakes are getting higher every
Yeah.
minute the movie goes on, and they're coming up with cool twists. I love a movie that can turn corners, resolve issues that you thought were the important issues, and then there's a whole new issue, and it's like you're into a second or a third part of the movie or an act that's just as
Hmm.
compelling as the first or second part act,
Yeah. Agreed.
and
Agreed.
and brings new things, new life to it. It's you watch it now and it's slower than you remember, but that's all part of its magic. And by
Hmm.
the end, you feel like it's been a breathless ride the whole time, even though it
Right.
was. It gave you a
Right.
lot to think about and a lot of time to process
Yeah. There's a
things
lot
there.
of downtime in that movie, but
Yeah, but the
it's a
tension
good
and
balance. It's a good
everything though,
balance. Yeah.
it's building the
Hmm.
whole time, and it
Right.
delivers everything. That's what people don't sometimes don't get today when you know, reading people's opinions on the internet and stuff. Is
Hmm.
they're sort of like, so what? It didn't deliver, but so what? It's like, don't you want this stuff to
Yeah. Don't
deliver?
you want
You
it to
do.
deliver? Don't you
I mean,
want it to be
I want to sit
good?
in the theater and be amazed like I was when I saw that film.
Hmm.
You know, because it was completely unexpected. We didn't read spoilers and things, you know, back
Mm-mm.
No,
then. We went to the
they weren't as
movie,
accessible back then anyway.
and we didn't
Yeah.
want to. We wanted to go to the movie, and a lot of times I'd be doing things I wouldn't even be like, "Hey, Aliens is out, let's go."
Hmm. Oh
I
yeah.
wouldn't even be necessarily counting down the days to it.
Hmm.
It had been 6 years since Alien or something
Yeah.
like that. I didn't know it
Seven
was going
years.
to be
Yep.
any good,
7 years. Yep.
and it wasn't really Scott, you know, and all that.
Mm-mm.
But I think the scene where the chest burster starts coming through Ripley's clothes on the space station.
Yes. Totally
That's the
shocking.
first. That's the first
Yeah.
scene that just made me think this is going to be amazing. And
Hmm.
then when they start having all the twists and turns on the planet and encountering more and more
Mhm.
problems every time one is revealed, and then when the alien came up out of the water behind the little girl, I was just like, this movie is sealed. It's badass.
I
Yeah.
remember, I think I remember, didn't we went out to eat or somewhere afterwards and we were all saying it was a 10. I think we were
Hmm.
ranking
I
it
remember
and we
that.
were
Yeah.
all
Yep.
saying it was a 10. It was like I can, and that's the only time I can really remember leaving a movie theater and everybody saying, yeah, it's a 10.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
Everybody
how
to
do
was
you
just
take
blown
me,
how do you
away.
take a xenomorph movie and make it appealing to literally everyone?
Everyone. Right.
You
Exactly.
know, but it's you can't if you're watching it and you have a brain in your head. And back in the time, you know, there's a time pre-aliens, it didn't exist,
Hmm.
and you go and see it and it suddenly exists. You've got to acknowledge this is done really, really well. You know, the script is amazing.
Yeah.
The performances are all perfectly cast. Everything's perfectly cast. The monsters are amazing. The action's amazing. It does the comedy. It does the action. But the only thing that cringed, my first cringe that I remember, well, no, it wasn't my first. Temple of Doom was my first cringe. But one of my first big cringes was the "Get away from her, you bitch" line.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Okay.
Um, which people love, you know, but I
I
never
loved
liked it. I
that
still
line.
remember the feeling I had when I
I
heard
always
this
liked it
film.
too. Yeah.
I loved that line.
But I get where you're coming from with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That crosses the line of cheesy a little bit.
Uh-huh.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I also have an issue with Hollywood movies where they set up, and again, this is where I say almost perfect script, where they
mhm.
set up family issues as the core of the script, and then they through kind of false circumstances and false stuff that feels manipulated, they solve all the family issues on top of solving the crisis. And that's what it felt like was happening. Luckily, they cut the bit with Ripley having a daughter that died while she was out in space. Because if that had been in there, I would have definitely, yeah, it would have bothered me that I
No,
was being manipulated
wrong.
so hard that she just happens to find a daughter, you know. But but
That would
but I
make
don't
it
like
too
that. That reminds
obvious.
me too much of
Obvious.
Jurassic Park, you know, where we're going to get divorced or whatever, and then the kid
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
the
and then
parents
there's
Yeah,
goes to the
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
store, and they all end up
Like,
together. It's like I don't need this family crap.
Right,
no,
I
right,
know they're
right.
trying to get families to go to the movie, and they did back
no,
then. But
Hmm.
even then, I wasn't in that group. You know, it's like I just want to
no.
see some
No,
badass
I get it. I get it.
fun.
I get it.
No, what was great about that scene was Ripley getting into that, becoming a cyborg and getting the
Basically, yeah.
big loader or whatever that thing was. It's
Yeah.
like whamming out. That was wonderful.
Oh,
What
that
a
was
great fight
amazing.
Yeah,
scene.
how many cool effects in that movie
Oh,
of all
yeah.
different kinds.
Absolutely.
Physical effects that just the puppetry, the
And there's so much of it holds up today. It
Hmm.
really does.
oh, it's yeah. There's nothing
It's
wrong with
just
it at all.
incredible. It
It's
didn't need CGI. It didn't need any of that stuff back then.
no,
They made incredible
Why don't
effects.
we also briefly mention the uh androids? Aren't they called androids in these movies? I don't
Yes.
think.
Yeah,
yeah.
they're called
Okay.
androids. Synthetics or androids. They had a
Because
couple of
that's
different ways
become a
of
Ash is
big
an android. Ash is a goddamn man.
that's a big Ridley Scott trope now. Ridley Scott's done so much stuff that deals with androids.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, you got two great androids, the Ash in the first one
And
that
Bishop in the second one,
oh
yeah.
yeah, and then
Hmm.
Bishop kind of turning the tables where you learn how to trust one in the
Yeah,
second
yeah.
one. So it's like yeah, but both of them and the special effects for them were also so cool.
Hmm.
They seemed like very real to me, especially when Bishop got ripped in half and still
I was going to say that
manages to
that's one of the
save the
Yeah,
best deaths
child.
ever in
Yeah,
cinema,
that was
right
that
there with
was
ah.
chest
crazy.
burster almost. And the fact
Yeah.
they saved that for the end
Hmm.
and got away with it because it was a synthetic and everything. I mean, just how brilliant
Yeah.
it was
Oh
that,
yeah.
you know. And then Lance Henriksen, who just sells it, you know, like
Hmm.
Hmm.
sells being ripped in half and having a tail stuffed through his torso and everything. It's
Absolutely.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Incredible. Yeah. And that's again another one, just like I said about the first film, the cast was so
Hmm.
amazing. You know, there were so many
uh,
great actors in this that pulled it off. Again, another sort of ensemble cast. And I know like we mentioned already, Greedo was here with me a couple of months ago when we saw the 40th anniversary re-release of Alien, or 45th, I guess. And dang, we're old. Anyway, and we while he was here, we watched the newly released 4K version with the AI sort of cleanup on aliens, and we were talking about how just not only how amazing it looks, but how infinitely quotable that film is.
yeah,
It's one of those that like every line is almost quotable in that film. And it's actually gotten into my everyday, thought process, like many things from Star Wars and other movies I like. I've got
yeah.
so many alien quotes that just go through my head every day in reaction to various things around me. But those are
Especially
such
Bill
great films.
Paxton's.
Oh yeah, he
But
was just brilliant.
Bill
He was
Paxton's
so
greatest
great.
role.
Yeah, that's another thing I remember from the first showing of that movie is just loving what was the
Hudson,
picture there? Hudson.
Hudson. Yep.
Yeah, and again
Hmm.
Hicks, the guy playing
Hicks
Hicks,
is it?
Michael
Yeah.
Biehn,
Michael Bean.
Bean.
I
Yeah.
never once thought of Terminator watching that with
No.
him.
Mm-mm, no.
Mm-mm.
He's a different character there,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and the whole thing is so immersive. It pulls you in so much. When I think about it, it's crazy. Like everything that you could list that Aliens succeeded at, Aliens succeeds and goes
Mm-hmm.
beyond. You
Goes
know,
to another level. Yeah.
yeah, to a different type of film. I
A
don't.
different type
You
of
can't
film. Yeah.
judge
Exactly.
Aliens poorly because it or Alien poorly because it wasn't trying to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
Aliens had to take something that was so great and they actually tried to top it, and they
Mm-hmm.
did in a way. I don't rate it as being a better film necessarily, but it's just amazing what they did. I
Hmm.
mean, and of course, there we were in 1986, seeing that in the theater and thinking this is going to be the best film franchise ever. You
Yeah.
know,
Right.
we've got
Right. Little did we know that we were already at the peak.
we have two
Segue into the
we have
end of
two
the
tens. We have two
episode. Too
tens, and I
bad.
mean,
Ooh.
Hmm.
you
Too
can't. No
bad.
one, even the biggest fan of Return of the Jedi, you probably wouldn't give it a 10.
Yeah.
So, you might give Star Wars and Empire a 10. So the third movie, even the biggest fan of Jedi would probably give it an 8 or 9 or something.
Unless you read a
So,
certain 7-page review
like,
written by a certain Carillion smuggler.
yeah, it's you said the same thing I just said about Aliens. They did everything and beyond with
Everything and
Empire.
beyond. Greatest film
All
ever.
of our questions are answered.
Until Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of
You
the
may
Sith.
think eating a big bowl of soup is satisfying, but it will not come nowhere close to the satisfaction you will feel walking down the Return of the Jedi. But
That's
the
about right.
crushing blow. But no, if you think about it, the downfall of the Alien franchise, it's inconceivable. It's from the point of 1986 from Aliens. What were they thinking from there on out?
I
What
don't
the
know.
hell
I
were
don't
they
know.
thinking?
I
Well,
don't
I've
know.
been
three
asking that
was
since I
just
went to see 3 and 4 in the theaters
yeah, yeah,
with no
yeah,
I only
spoilers or
saw
anything,
three in the
hoping.
theater.
yeah.
I
But
think I
No.
3
might have
tore my
seen
heart
three with
out. I didn't
you.
want any more to do with it after that. I went to
No,
see
three
4 just
was,
on the off chance and wanted to see some aliens.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
no, I agree. Three was had so many problems from the get-go with it's always a red flag when you see, 5, 6, 7 screenwriters attached to a project, and then this director, nope, he's fired. Oh, bring in another director. Nope, he's fired. Bring in a third. It's like, okay, come on, something's going on. Because I remember reading all that before the film even came out, and we knew, oh, this might be a disaster, and it actually was. It really,
I would have
really was.
rather seen a legal battle with Bishop becoming Hicks's attorney, trying to get him the benefits from the VA, the company's
Right.
VA.
It would have been more interesting. Yeah, I
That
agree.
a whole movie of that, and those characters are alive. Than what they did to those
Yep.
characters in three,
That
because
ruined three
by
right
the
there,
end
just
of
right off the
Aliens,
bat. Hmm.
yeah, by the end of Aliens, there's hardly been a movie where characters earned it so much.
Hmm.
Yeah.
They earned a chance to go
Yeah.
on,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
at least for us to see them again, and for you to make a sequel, a supposed sequel,
Hmm.
and we don't even
Two of
see
them are just
And
instantly
within the first
some
dead.
of the
5 minutes,
characters.
Yeah.
they're dead.
They're dead.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, and you better have something better
Yeah.
Yeah.
to replace it, and they had
Yeah.
nothing.
They
It was an
didn't. They couldn't
empty
do it.
magic trick.
And again, for me, and maybe this isn't a viable reason, I don't know, but what completely took me out of this film was the horrible level of special effects in this film. The
Yeah, it
dog
was pretty bad.
alien and just the
This
clear,
was
the
CGI again.
horrible
Forgot about
CGI,
the
the
dog
horrible, oh, it
alien.
was just terrible. It was so green screeny looking and fake. And it's just, that is, that needs to be a person in a suit. That's, which again is what I understand Fede Alvarez has gotten back to with the upcoming film, is that he's going back to all his analog. It's just, people in suits. It's not, there's no CGI aliens, nothing like that.
And
So,
unless you have a phobia or you had some childhood experience, a dog is not terrifying.
mm-mm.
It's just why you want to take the most
It's just
terrifying
that it
thing
runs around
ever
on all
and
fours instead
combine
of
it and filter
bipedal.
it
Yeah.
down with a Snoopy. It makes
Yeah.
no sense.
Was Snoop.
Snoopy alien.
No, it made absolutely no sense at all. And
Everybody was afraid of the cat. What was the cat's name in the first two?
Jones.
Jones. Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody
Jonesy.
thought Jones was
Jonesy.
Jonesy.
infected. Yeah.
Jonesy. Yeah.
Jonesy. So it would have been better if it had been Jonesy, but
And Jonesy could have just coughed up a
Snoopy.
hairball and it could have been a little alien egg. And then Jonesy
Right.
could just walk away. It would have been fine.
That's
I mean,
That's
awesome.
the one creature in the movie.
Jonesy looked damn evil in the first movie when Jonesy witnessed other people being killed by
Oh
the
yeah, like when
alien.
Brett's getting
Jonesy
killed, he's just looking
total
like, oh, sucks.
indifference.
He
Like,
like sucks to be you. Yeah.
Yeah.
that I'll have that image of Jonesy just branded on my
Hmm.
brain from that scene. It's like, oh. And you don't even, and you're not seeing. That's another thing about the horror of that first movie that we mentioned, is that so much is left unseen. You're not
Yes.
seeing what's
Yeah.
happening,
Yes.
Yeah.
but you're seeing it through the cat's
Much, much
eyes,
better.
through an
Absolutely.
animal's
Much
eyes.
more
You're
effective.
looking
Yeah.
at what's
Much more
happening.
effective. I agree. So quickly.
Sometimes we've seen
Uh-huh.
over and over again in sci-fi and horror, reaction shots are what sells things a lot of times.
Yeah.
You don't even have to necessarily show what they're looking at to get
Yeah.
away
The
with a scene
reaction
that's
shot, as it's
horrifying.
done
If
well,
you have
sells it.
great actors
Yep.
reacting properly to it and everything,
Absolutely.
people fill in the blanks. You know,
Well, Jonesy was the right actor there.
Exactly.
Performance was exquisite.
Jonesy 1, 2, or 3, whichever one you
so
were.
was what Carillion or Gundark? Is there anything you liked about three? Because I
Well,
hated.
Sigourney
Uh,
Weaver was in it, but
I,
No,
I
there
didn't
no,
like her.
there are
no,
likable
I
aspects.
mean,
There are likable aspects of the film.
I
Um,
didn't really like anything about it. There's nothing I can remember that I
the
really liked
premise I
about
thought
it.
was good. I just thought it was a missed opportunity. Writing wise, they just didn't write a compelling enough story.
No,
And they
But
killed off one of the best actors immediately. Also, the
immediately,
new
yeah,
characters, the
hmm
Doctor,
yeah.
yeah,
who ended up, being a Game of Thrones
right, yeah,
standout.
exactly. Daddy Lannister.
Shows you, what the hell is going on. And I've never understood the premise of we're going to have a survival film where everyone looks the same.
Yeah,
You put them in
Yeah,
a drab environment
everybody's
where
got
I
the
can't even
same
tell
yeah.
clothes, same
what part
hairdo,
of the
same
environment they're
everything.
in. Like,
Yeah.
did they make any progress to get away, or didn't they? I don't know because everything looks the same. All
hmm
their hair, all their heads are shaved, so they look, they're just slightly different shades of skin color. They're wearing brown clothes. It's like
Yeah.
dumb to me.
Yeah.
I
Just
just no
bad
connection.
bad choices for sure.
And I remember the
Sure.
cinematography feeling oppressive, not like the way horrific in the other movies, but just
hmm
like drab and oppressive.
Yeah.
It was like,
Unappealing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
hmm
even the male female dynamic in that was ugly because she's put on a rock that's a prison, but
All
it's
Prison
male
also
planet.
prisoners.
Yep.
physical,
Yeah,
hmm
yeah.
which also and it's like violent offenders against women and stuff, and it's just has an ugly undertone
Yeah,
hmm
to it that I didn't appreciate either. I don't know what they were trying to go for there.
Yeah.
no,
Agreed.
And then the only big reveal is that Bishop looks like the creator of the androids or whatever.
He
yeah.
was. Yeah.
Comes,
Exactly.
comes in for a second. So they were trying to set up something for a
hmm
lackluster sequel of the sequel.
Well, what I'll say about Alien 3 that, and I don't know if I'm sure you probably haven't seen it, Gundark, and I think it's probably been a while since you've seen it, Greedo, but back in, I think it was maybe around 2012 when they came out with one of the box sets, with Blu-ray box set for the Alien series. They came out, they released multiple versions of each film. Basically, there's two versions of each film available. There's the original, always the theatrical cut, and usually a director's cut of each film. Uh,
Mm.
with the third film, it's called the assembly cut. And what they did is they
Yeah,
they
I
actually
think I know
went
what you're
back
talking about.
and reshot certain scenes to
Yeah.
change it. They actually took a lot of scenes, rearranged the running order to where it actually made more sense. And to me, it salvaged the film a little bit more. It actually went up a few notches. By no means is it saved, and it's like, oh, it's a great film now. It's just like it's definitely more watchable than it was.
I
But
haven't seen it. I've only seen clips from it.
the fact that they got away from it being a dog alien, it didn't just burst out of a dog, and they got rid of that entirely. And this time it came out of a bull, like some giant longhorn bull or something, which just and the way that's a whole scene that they reshot, but it actually kind of seamlessly fits. It doesn't look like it was filmed 20 years later or whatever, 25 years later. Anyway, that's the one saving grace I will say to that. That's the only version I will watch of that
Yeah,
film. I will
it's
not
not
watch the
enough
theatrical
because
version.
you can't
Yeah.
fix the major mistakes that film made.
No.
And I felt ripped off seeing that. Like
Yeah.
20th Century Fox, I
Very
think, are
disappointed.
still in
Yeah.
charge of Aliens franchise at this
hmm
point. I thought they don't give a crap about me, at all.
Yeah.
And also I began to at this point have a theory that they weren't willing to spend any money anymore on this franchise. They were just going to
Mm.
put stuff out to
Just
To
get
to
get
milk
audiences to
it.
what
show
To
them
money
milk
what
it.
they
happening.
could.
Like,
Yeah.
and the only expense they were willing to incur was
Paying for
Sigourney Weaver.
Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
also began to wonder about her, like, why is she agreeing to do these horrible films it's just for a big payday? Because
hmm
it kind of shattered some illusions of mine. That's like, why wouldn't you want to get the crew together from Aliens if you're going to do a sequel and
Yeah.
do it right, do
Well,
it correctly?
my moment that you just experienced happened with Resurrection. That's when I had that moment. Three I didn't like, but it wasn't that sort of, oh, this is the worst thing ever, they don't care moment. That was when Resurrection happened. I think partly because it did get my hopes up, which I'm hoping doesn't happen with the new film. But they got my hopes up thinking, oh, because I remember the trailers being incredible. Because I remember you and I were talking about it, agreed, like, oh, this is going to be great. They're getting back to that same vibe of the original Alien film. This is going to be amazing. And I remember walking out of that theater so crestfallen that just
Yeah.
like, that was terrible. Like that was awful. There was nothing good about that movie. The cast was mostly unlikable, I thought. Yeah, I don't know. They just something after the second film, they just kind of lost the direction
Yeah.
on where they were
In the
going with their
immortal words of
characterizations.
in the immortal words of Eddie Murphy, here's a film that sucked real bad. I mean, it sucked in
It
every
was
freaking
so I
way.
can't I to this day for a while there it was that movie that I would go a few years and be like, okay, I'm gonna watch it. It's not gonna be as bad as I remember. And every time I watch, like, oh, it's every bit as bad as I remember,
Yeah.
if not worse. I can't with that film at all. I can't watch it.
What's
It's
the
so
girl who
bad.
played the robot in this one?
Oh,
Oh,
Winona
Winona
Ryder.
Ryder. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
she
Winona
just
Ryder.
seems angry to be in the movie.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
just like doesn't want to
Like,
be there.
why am
She's
I
like
here?
stomping around, rolling her eyes the whole time. Like,
And okay, and we already have the perfect, cinematic creature, and now we're gonna make it roar, and we're gonna
yeah,
make steam come out of its mouth because it's not scary enough. We're just gonna
yeah.
make it comical and
And
silly.
we're also gonna make it reminiscent of Piranha when it swims. So
Yeah,
again,
exactly.
let's
It's like
just take
swimming through the
something
water.
ultimately
Yeah.
terrifying and reduce it to something else way, way, way less terrifying and silly.
And
And the
I'm sorry,
CGI
but
was terrible.
to me, the ultimate jump the shark moment in that film, as if it didn't jump the shark immediately, was the actor. I forget the guy's name, but he ends up getting the tongue teeth to the back of the head, and he little reaction is like, and he reaches back and pulls out part of his skull, and like, like, you've got to be kidding me! They actually just put that in a movie. They actually put that in a movie.
Yeah, they did.
Oh boy.
The only cool thing in that whole movie, which I saw recently in a video clip online, is that shot where Ripley throws the ball over her head
Yeah,
across
and it
court
goes
and makes
through
that
the
basket. That actually happened.
Yeah, they actually did that. It wasn't like
Yeah,
a
she
setup
just
where
did
she
it on the
throws it
like
off
first
screen and
shot or
somebody else
whatever.
drops it through. Yeah, she
Yeah,
actually
she
did
did.
that.
Yeah, she just did that, and everybody just hit the floor because they couldn't believe it. So, I
Right.
mean, I wish they had just shown that one scene and told us what happened. That would have been better than the whole rest of the
Yeah,
movie
that'd
put
have been the
together.
whole movie.
Yeah, but at that point, I definitely solidified my thing of Ripley's done.
Hmm.
This character is
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
overstated to welcome, and
Well, I
but
mean, that
people
was
still
it. They've
ask,
never seen Ripley
like
since. So.
Lady
Yeah.
Rodian asked me about Romulus. I told her I wanted to go see Romulus, and she said, "Is Sigourney Weaver in it?" So the people who aren't married to this stuff like we are, they
Yeah,
still want to,
yeah,
like, hey, there's Sigourney Weaver in it.
yeah. No.
No, that character is freaking dead, 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 dead,
And
dead.
and to quote Sigourney Weaver herself when asked in an interview with over the last year if she'll ever make another appearance in a film, and she said, "No, that ship sailed a long time ago."
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she said she was way, way beyond reprising that role.
So
So,
3 and 4 were terrible.
yeah,
Yeah.
But my moment of the ultimate, where I knew the whole thing was for sure definitely over, was when the blob alien at the end like starts calling her mama or whatever,
Oh,
and
that
the scene
was,
with her.
and it got sucked out the hull of the ship or whatever, didn't it? Like vacuum.
Which was an idea from the first movie that never got used, which shows you,
because it was so
Yeah, that
impractical
they're
and it would
just,
never
yeah,
happen.
yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
it which
yeah,
shows you how out of ideas they were.
Hmm.
yeah.
And again, they killed off all the characters that earned a place with us,
Yeah.
left us with characters we couldn't give a shit about. And for some reason, at that point in time, every movie had a group of mercenaries in it,
Hmm.
and they're all. It was this. A lot of that is the same. Blade, Blade 2, and so anyway, it was the thing to do, and it was another money grab in my opinion.
Mhm.
Jaded,
Yeah.
awful, and they never made it to Earth. We've been
Yeah.
waiting this whole time for the aliens to make it to Earth, and by Alien 4, they still haven't made it to Earth. It's still just a tease. And ridiculous. So what? Was there an Alien 5? I don't even know.
No.
No, there were all
No.
the Alien Predator ones, right?
Well, they
Yeah.
made two
And
AVP movies, which technically speaking are kind of their own, unique universe thing.
yeah.
They
And they're
aren't
mostly
really
directed by
canon.
music video directors, which shows you what
Right,
thought's been
right.
informed at that point.
Exactly. But they did make, of course, Prometheus was the next proper Alien film,
Mm.
basically the prequel that Ridley Scott directed in 2012, and then after that was Covenant in 2015.
Oh,
So that was the
Covenant.
next one.
Prometheus was pretty bad. Covenant was horrible. Horrible.
The
I,
only
I,
good thing about those movies was the David android
Yeah, yeah.
who played
Michael
the
but
Fassbender.
yeah, that
Michael
was really
Fassbender.
that
Yeah.
it was
Hmm.
interesting,
Very,
but
that
very,
just
very much
isn't
so.
saying much, though. Being a
no, it
good thing
isn't.
amongst a pile of trash is not.
No, you're right.
It's not
But
making
Ridley
words fit.
Scott has some kind of obsession with androids. I mean,
He
you
really
got
No,
Blade
does.
that's it.
Yeah.
Runner,
And
you
leave
got
aliens
yeah.
out of it.
Well, he kind of did. Everybody watching this, if you haven't watched it, watch what is the series he did on was it HBO
Oh,
with the
yeah.
aliens raised by wolves? That one
Raised by
is a
Wolves.
Ridley Scott series about androids. Oh, it's so weird.
Yeah, I
It's
did
so
not
Yeah,
like
parts
strange.
of
that.
it
You
are really
didn't like
good.
it? I loved it.
I watched season one and
It's bizarre.
I
It's
couldn't get into
bizarre.
it.
It's one of those shows that
Yeah.
repeatedly jumps the shark, but then somehow keeps coming back.
Yeah, you keep like, oh my God, what did I just see?
You're
Like,
like, I'm just gonna watch this, even though it just jumped the shark. I'm gonna watch the next
I'm
episode.
just
Oh,
gonna keep
wow,
watching it.
this,
Yeah.
it felt kind of
wow,
like
what
Twin
the hell?
Twin Peaks with androids or
Yeah,
something.
Yeah,
So,
it didn't do it for me. So,
and
um,
another thing to look at, if you're like thinking about the first Alien movie, go look at Mario Bava's what is it, Vampires in Outer Space? Is that what it is? The 1965 horror movie he made where people crash land, humans crash land on a
mhm.
planet where they find a ship that has like a huge dead alien in it, and they start encountering this nefarious life
Weird.
form.
Okay.
That's a yeah,
Sounds
that's a Vampires in Outer Space. I think it's pretty
sounds
cool.
oddly similar. Okay.
And read Octavia Butler's short story Blood Child.
Blood Child. Okay.
Blood Child. It's kind of the male pregnancy story. I mean, it's like the John
Oh,
Hurt
okay.
story.
The John Hurt story.
In written sci-fi. It's like
Right,
the
right.
John Hurt. Oh, it is so it's so
Okay.
graphic and horrible. And it's short
Interesting.
and easy to get through. Blood Child by
Okay.
Octavia Butler.
I have to
But
look at that.
we
yeah,
may
you
not be the core audience for that.
no.
The intended audience for that. I
I
might be
mean,
able to take a
you
couple of.
had to see you guys were drooling over getting a book showing a guy burst out of his chest. You
I
would
know,
love
but
that story.
at 12 or 11 or 12, it didn't occur to me that he was pregnant. It never
No, we
occurred
didn't
to
look at it that way. Yeah.
me.
12-year-old Alan didn't say, "Oh, he's pregnant," with an
No, I'm
alien.
talking
Well,
about
the challenges of birth.
graphic body horror.
Well, yeah, the graphic body
This
horror
has
we're
a
drawn to, I
graphic
guess.
body horror scene in it that is like you
Yeah.
can't unread in your mind.
Mhm.
You read it and
Right.
like you can't unread it. So
Okay.
yeah,
No, I
it's
Okay.
a
never once
really
thought
good.
about the
It's really good.
special scene and thought, oh, that's what a woman goes through giving birth. I just thought, oh my
No.
God, the hideous pain of tearing greed from the inside out. And
Exactly.
they even had Ash say, Kane's son at one point in the
Yeah.
movie, like
Hmm.
pointing out that
Exactly.
to me that was just cool. That it's so alien, but it takes on aspects of whatever its host is as
Hmm.
part of
Yeah.
its ability to evolve in the environment. If you're adapted for the environment, it'll take on your adaptations to adapt to the
Yeah.
Exactly.
environment and become that much
Exactly.
more beatable. But
So,
um,
to wrap up, I'm going to go ahead and do my ratings. And you can include, I know, Gundark, you haven't even seen all the films, but
Yeah, I
I
haven't seen
guess
the
at least
fourth
rate the
one.
one. I know you haven't seen the AVPs and all that stuff, but
Mm-mm.
I'm going to go ahead and do all 8 so far. So my rating would be, I'm just going to do them from first to last. I'm not going to do it in reverse order. But number one, I give even though it's really closely tied, the 1 and 2 to me is a photo finish. For like we discussed different reasons, I'm going to give a nod to the first original film, just because it started it all, and that's what got us into this. So Alien 1, Aliens 2. For number 3, I'm actually going with Prometheus. Even though in spite of all its problems, it's just got fewer problems than so many of the others. After that, I'm going to go with for number 4, the assembly cut, only the assembly cut of Alien 3. That's my fourth. Then for five, I'm going with the first AVP film. Again, kind of comic bookish, not a whole lot of substance there. It's just a movie you turn on if you just like a bubblegum movie to watch aliens and predators fight each other. After that, I'm going with Covenant, which again, just not good. Then we've got Resurrection after that in seventh place. And dead last by a mile is Alien versus Predator Requiem, which is so far beyond the most garbage movie I've ever B level awful movie you've ever seen. Yeah. I mean it makes things like Alien Resurrection look like, wow, that's fantastic. That's how bad that movie was.
God.
Yeah.
I'll make mine real quick.
Okay, sure.
I'm like you. Just because you did it the other way, I'll say Aliens 1 and Alien 2, but they're tied.
Okay.
There's no point in ranking
they're
them.
right there. Yeah.
They're beautifully complementary,
Mm-hmm.
amazing that two different epic directors of our time both came up with something that could work together to build a perfect screen world and world apart for an alien. And then of course it's everything else is trash. It's just destroyed. I don't even rank anything. They're all trash. They're just trash.
Okay. So we've got Aliens, Alien, and a big trash
There's only
heap.
two alien movies to be. The rest are manipulative money grabs, and they got my money at the time, and F them. I won't give them any more thought. They suck. Terrible. And the new ones are even either not as bad as as 3 and 4, Prometheus and whatever the other one, Covenant. Are so bad, are such a slap in the face for what we were told we were going to get a reinvention from the original.
Well, I agree with that, but
I couldn't. Covenant was so bad.
It was an insult to humanity, is what it was.
Yeah, because you're like, if you want to get insulted and have a good time, go see a comic and sit in the front row.
Yeah,
that is way better experience than anything like Covenant, where you're just insulted. Yes. You can say anything back because the people aren't there. It's like, and you can't really ask for your money back. It's like terrible crap.
Okay, I want to do my rating. I can't include the Alien versus Predator stuff because I haven't seen any of them.
Yeah,
but I'm like you guys. Alien and Aliens as top rank. They share the top spot. I can't choose one over the other.
Yeah, fair enough.
And then I guess maybe the second one is. I guess Alien 3, and then Prometheus, I guess, and what's the Alien Resurrection? From what I've seen of it, I've only seen several clips. Haven't seen the whole movie. So
let's keep it that way. Trust me.
And then Alien Covenant, I did go see all of that, and I was so insulted. I was like, please, humans, don't go colonize other worlds. You don't deserve it if you're as dumb as these humans.
Ash was right.
Yeah, Gundart,
I won't lie to you about your chances.
Gundart, for a future episode, I think we need to have you watch Resurrection all the way through, and then we're going to do a compare and contrast with Temple of Doom and Resurrection.
Oh no. No.
And you have to come up with 10 positive things to say about each.
I don't know about that. The Temple of Doom at 10. Does it have to be 10? Oh my God.
Oh, you can do it. I believe in you.
Harrison Ford, could he be all 10 of them?
I was going to say he can at least be the first 5.
As long as we're doing sacrilegious things, why don't you do a video essay comparing the freeing of the children slaves from Temple of Doom, with the revelation of the descendants of the Jews in Schindler's List. So we can talk about Spielberg movies where they have these inspiring.
Yeah, because they're both Spielberg, exactly.
Oh wow. God, Temple of Doom is this. Nope.
That is a
I'd rather eat monkey brains than.
And I wanted to say one more thing. She was talking about the movies to watch. There's a sci-fi novel called The Voyage of the Space Beagle by a classic author, and that was the origin of the tarantula story, this wasp and tarantula story.
Oh,
That
okay.
was the kind of it was kind of the origin for the alien parasitic
Oh, right, right.
life cycle
Interesting.
thing.
Okay.
And also, I want to say, just the other night before when we decided to do this, I went outside and there was what they call a giant wolf spider. He's just smaller, slightly smaller than a tarantula, and a wasp was attacking him on my porch. And it was like a good sign to see this. I think when we were
Yeah,
going to talk about it,
exactly.
and the spider was paralyzed by the wasp, and but then my
Wow.
dog panicked and jumped over the wasp. This sounds going to sound like a nursery rhyme, jumped over the moon or something. And the wasp panicked and fled. So the spider was just sitting there paralyzed. So I
Wow.
put it on the other side of the fence. I don't know what happened to it,
Oh,
but
that's crazy. Yikes. But I'm
again,
definitely looking forward to Alien Romulus coming out in a couple weeks.
yeah, me
And
too.
I've already got my ticket for opening night. I'm going the Thursday evening too. They're having a fan event at the Disney Springs Theater, where
Oh,
they have some
cool.
giveaways and stuff like that. And I really want to get those popcorn
Oh,
buckets.
yeah.
If I don't
Those
get
look
one of those
really
Yeah.
popcorn
cool.
buckets, I'm gonna be screaming. So because those look amazing. So
What's your prediction? What do you think this movie is going to turn out like? What's your future self going to be saying?
I'm hoping that my future self is saying that that's the third best Alien movie ever made. I mean, I really
How hard could that be, though?
how hard could that be, right? It's just
Yeah.
one and two and then a garbage heap. Uh, I mean, and I think honestly that's going to be the realistic case. I mean, there's no way it's topping the first two, obviously. Um, I just think it's going to probably settle into third place. I just hope that it does. I hope it's not a misdirection where we, have all this amazing, trailer
Yeah.
preview stuff, and then we go in there and it's, Alien Resurrection again or something.
I'm afraid of it being like Covenant,
Mhm.
but
I don't
yeah,
think so.
I'm
I don't.
hoping for the best.
Yeah, just
I'm hoping
the
for the
interviews, I
best.
just get a better feel from what Alvarez is doing with this.
They're
That
putting a lot of hype behind it, which they
well,
haven't
they
done in a
are,
long time.
they are.
So either
Yeah,
they're very happy with it, or they just want to take our money for the first
right. They're
weekend.
just trying to get over the
Yeah,
fact that it's going to suck. Yep.
damn them! I'm so tired of that happening. But
Yeah,
But you're
exactly.
gonna give your money anyway.
oh, and I will say one more thing. The other 10 associated with the Alien franchise, like they got off bat, is the video game.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh,
Alien
what was it?
Isolation,
Alien Isolation is a definite 10.
absolute
And if
10.
you're an Alien fan and you can play video games at all, it's worth playing
That
as an
game's
Alien fan.
incredible. Yeah.
'Cause it is like a sequel almost, or a prequel, or whatever you want to call it, that fills in a lot of blanks,
Hmm.
and pays homage in a great way to the whole
Yeah, the
franchise and
main
really
character,
captures the spirit of it.
as the main character, you are Amanda Ripley, Ripley's daughter, when she's a young adult and she's trying to find her mom, and she kind of gets thrown into a very similar situation that her mom did.
And it
oh,
reunites a
sounds
lot of the
cool.
cast. It
Hmm.
reunites a
Oh,
lot of the cast
cool.
from Alien.
Yeah, it's
Um,
so good.
yeah, it's amazing. And there's several other Alien video games that were also really, really well done. So
Hmm.
that's kind of where I followed the franchise after I gave up on the movies, with the video games, because
Yeah.
much like shooting at stormtroopers, shooting at aliens never gets old either.
No,
So
exactly. Yeah, very, very good. Well, anyway, I hope you enjoyed our discussion
Xenomorphs.
on Alien. And we look forward to seeing if you're looking forward to Alien Romulus, let us know in the comments. And then when it does come out, come back and let us know what you thought of it. Give us your reviews. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And I'm sure I'll be doing a comprehensive review after the film as well. So until next time, guys, thanks for checking us out, liking, subscribing, supporting the channel, all the usual stuff. See you next time. Yeah, don't let me down, Fade. Don't let me down.
No, I bet I can get an alien popcorn bucket.
Are you sure you want to do this?